If you continue to explain yourself to everyone who misunderstands you, you are slowly committing spiritual suicide. By the end of this video, you will understand why your constant need for validation is the very thing keeping you trapped in a life that feels empty and chaotic. If you choose to ignore this message, you will remain a ghost in your own existence, forever haunted by roles you never chose to play. We live in an era of unprecedented noise, where the pressure to be seen and heard has reached a breaking point. Yet, the more we speak, the less we are heard, and the more we justify our worth, the less value we seem to possess. The world is loud, demanding, and increasingly intrusive, leaving us with a profound sense of exhaustion that no amount of sleep can cure. This fatigue does not come from physical labor, but from the relentless effort of maintaining a facade for a world that does not truly care. Carl Jung, one of the most profound explorers of the human soul, recognized this trap nearly a century ago. He observed that humans often look for their reflection in the eyes of others, forgetting that the most important gaze is the one directed inward. This journey toward the center of one's being is what he called individuation, a process that requires a radical departure from the noise of the crowd. In the year 2026, the struggle for identity has shifted from the physical realm to the digital one, making Jung's insights more relevant than ever. We are constantly performing on a stage that never closes, under lights that never dim. We feel an urgent need to prove we are right, to show we are happy, and to demonstrate that we are worthy of respect. But what if the secret to setting your life in order is not found in more action, but in the calculated withdrawal into silence? When you stop explaining, you stop leaking the very energy required to build a meaningful life. Point 1. Silence is the only way to dismantle the social mask that is suffocating your true self. Humans are social creatures, and to survive in a complex society, we all wear what Jung termed the persona. This is the professional, polite, and capable version of ourselves that we present to the world. It is a necessary tool, much like a uniform one wears to work. However, in our modern culture, the uniform has become the person, and the mask has grown into the skin. We have become so addicted to the approval of the crowd that we have forgotten who is actually breathing behind the curtain. Think about the last time you were misunderstood or criticized, perhaps on a social media platform or in a heated office meeting. Your immediate instinct was likely to defend yourself, to provide context, and to ensure the other person saw you in a positive light. In that moment of frantic explanation, you were not acting as a free individual, but as a slave to your own image. You were terrified that if the persona was damaged, you would cease to exist. This is the great illusion of the modern ego, the belief that our value is determined by the perceptions of a distracted and fickle public. When you choose silence in the face of judgment, you are performing a revolutionary act of self-possession. You are essentially telling the world that your internal reality is not up for debate. This silence is not a sign of weakness or a lack of arguments, but a demonstration of supreme confidence. It is the realization that the truth does not need to be shouted to be real. By withdrawing your energy from the theater of social validation, you allow the mask to loosen, giving the real person underneath room to breathe for the first time in years. This shift in behavior creates a powerful psychological vacuum. When you stop providing the usual reactions and explanations, people around you are forced to confront their own projections. They can no longer use you as a screen for their own insecurities or expectations. This creates a distance that is not cold, but clarifying. You start to see that much of your daily stress was never about your actual life, but about the exhausting maintenance of a character you were never meant to play indefinitely. In the quiet that follows the removal of the mask, you will encounter the second stage of this journey. Point 2. Silence is the threshold where you must face the shadow within your own soul. Most people avoid silence because they are terrified of what they might hear when the distractions fade away. In our contemporary world, we use technology as a shield against ourselves. We fill every gap in time with a podcast, a video, or a scroll through a feed, all to avoid the uncomfortable voices that rise from the basement of our minds. Carl Jung called this collection of suppressed emotions and denied traits the shadow. It consists of everything we have deemed unacceptable about ourselves. Rancœur, our envy, our secret fears, and our unpolished desires. We have spent our lives pushing these elements into the darkness so we can appear good or successful to others. But in silence, the shadow refuses to stay hidden. It begins to speak through the anxiety you feel when the room goes quiet, or the sudden sadness that hits you when you are alone. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is a painful process, but it is the only way to achieve true psychological maturity. When you sit in silence and allow the uncomfortable thoughts to surface, you are finally acknowledging the full spectrum of your humanity. You realize that your anger often stems from a lack of boundaries, and your envy reveals a desire you have been too afraid to pursue. By facing the shadow, you take away its power to control you from the shadows. In the ancient stories, such as those found in the holy texts, the desert is often the place of transformation. Moses, Elijah, and Jesus all spent significant time in the wilderness, facing their own internal battles before they could fulfill their missions. In the year 2026, your desert is the time you spend without your phone, without your friends, and without your habitual distractions. It is in this internal emptiness that you find the strength to integrate your shadow, turning your repressed energy into a source of creativity and power. As you begin to integrate these hidden parts of yourself, you will notice a significant change in your vitality. Point 3. Focusing on yourself is the mechanism for reclaiming the life force you have been wasting on the world. Jung used the term libido to describe this general psychological energy. Most people suffer from a chronic leakage of this energy. They give it away to toxic news cycles, meaningless arguments, and the problems of people who have no intention of changing. They are like a reservoir with 100 cracks, wondering why they never have enough water to nourish their own fields. True self-focus is not about being narcissistic. It is about being an efficient steward of your own life. When you stop being the emotional sponge for everyone else's drama, your internal reservoir begins to fill up again. You start to have the mental clarity to pursue your own goals and the physical energy to change your habits. This is the point where life begins to feel less like a struggle and more like a focused mission. You are no longer a victim of circumstance, but the architect of your own focus. Consider the story of a person who is always the fixer for their family and friends. They spend hours every week listening to the same complaints, offering advice that is never taken, and feeling exhausted by the weight of other people's choices. When this person decides to become silent and focus on their own path, they often feel guilty at first, but soon they realize that their help was actually preventing others from taking responsibility for themselves. By pulling back, they not only save their own life, but allow others the space to grow as well. This reclamation of energy leads to a profound deepening of the personality. Point 4. Silence and focus serve as the gateway to the hidden depths of the inner world. Beyond the everyday thoughts and the repressed shadow lies the core of our being, what Jung called the self. This is the blueprint of our potential, the internal compass that knows exactly who we are meant to become. But we can only hear the instructions of this compass when the noise of the ego is silenced. Modern neuroscience has identified a system called the default mode network, which becomes active when we are not focused on external tasks. This network is responsible for self-reflection, moral reasoning, and the integration of memory. By making a habit of silence, you are literally changing the wiring of your brain. You are allowing your mind to move from a state of constant reaction to a state of deep synthesis. This is where the magic begins to happen. As your unconscious mind starts to offer solutions to problems that your conscious mind could never solve. This depth is not something you can manufacture with positive thinking or superficial affirmations. It requires a genuine commitment to being alone with your own thoughts. It requires the courage to be boring in the eyes of a world that demands constant stimulation. But the reward is a sense of internal stability that nothing in the external world can shake. You become like a tree with roots that reach deep into the earth. While the branches may sway in the wind, the trunk remains unmoved. When you reach this state of internal alignment, a phenomenon occurs that Jung called synchronicity. Point 5. Everything begins to fall into place when your inner and outer worlds are in harmony. Synchronicity is the appearance of meaningful coincidences that seem to guide you on your path. It is the right phone call at the right time, the unexpected opportunity that perfectly matches your new direction, or the sudden clarity that comes from a random encounter. These events are not mere accidents. They are the result of a mind that has stopped fighting against its own nature. When you are silent and focused, you become highly sensitive to the patterns of reality. You are no longer forcing doors open. You are walking through the ones that are naturally unfolding before you. This is the true meaning of setting your life in order. It is not about controlling every variable, but about becoming the kind of person that attracts order and purpose. Imagine a mirror that has been covered in thick dust for years. The images it reflects are distorted, dark, and confusing. This is the mind of a person who is constantly explaining, reacting, and performing. But as you practice silence and focus, you are wiping away the dust. Suddenly, the reflection is clear. The world around you begins to look different because you are seeing it through a clear lens. You realize that the chaos of your life was largely a reflection of your own internal fragmentation in the year 2025. And as we move further into the future, the ability to remain silent and focused will be the ultimate competitive advantage. While the rest of the world is drowning in information and losing themselves in digital personas, the person who knows how to return to their center will possess a quiet authority. Their words will carry weight because they are not spoken out of a need for approval. Their actions will be effective because they are not driven by frantic anxiety. The process of individuation is not a destination, but a continuous way of being. It requires you to daily choose the quiet over the loud, the internal over the external, and the real over the performative. It asks you to be brave enough to be misunderstood by those who only know how to live on the surface. But for those who are willing to take this path, the reward is the only thing that truly matters: the discovery of your own soul. As we conclude this exploration, I want you to consider the weight of your own silence. The next time you feel the urge to explain your choices, to defend your worth, or to fill an uncomfortable gap in a conversation, I want you to stop. Hold that energy inside. Feel the power that comes from not giving yourself away. In that moment of restraint, you are beginning to set your life in order. You are reclaiming the throne of your own consciousness. Do not be afraid of the loneliness that sometimes comes with this journey. It is not the loneliness of being abandoned, but the solitude of being found. In the silence, you will meet the person you were always meant to be before the world told you who you should be. This person does not need to shout to be heard. This person does not need to run to arrive. This person is you, standing on the solid ground of your own truth. Remember that the most important conversations you will ever have are the ones you have with yourself in the dead of night. The most significant changes in your life will not come from a grand public gesture, but from the quiet decisions you make when no one is watching. Your life is a sacred project, and it deserves more than to be spent in the service of a distracted crowd. Turn inward, become quiet, and watch as the world slowly but surely begins to fall into its rightful place. The order you seek is already within you, waiting beneath the layers of noise and expectation. It is a quiet, steady rhythm that has been there since the day you were born. By choosing silence and focus, you are not creating order. You are simply allowing it to return. You are coming home to yourself, and in that homecoming, you will find a peace that surpasses all understanding, a strength that no storm can break, and a life that is finally, truly, your own. Let the year 2026 be the time you stopped running from your own reflection. Let it be the time you realize that your silence is more powerful than your words. As the great Carl Jung once suggested, the one who looks outside dreams, but the one who looks inside awakes. It is time for you to wake up. It is time for the noise to end and for your true life to begin. The world will wait, but your soul cannot. Step into the quiet and find the order you have been searching for all along.